And the first question, which comes up from Dave, is whether you or any of your students, if they've been in a real street situation, what techniques have worked effectively for them? Because we teach, I know I teach a lot of, I won't say a lot of stuff. I teach some techniques that I would never use on the street. They're good concept wise, but the reality is there are too many steps involved. But have any of you or your students been in street situations? And if you have, what techniques have worked for you or your students?
I can start this if you'd like, since I brought this topic up. We talk about on the street. One of my students very reluctantly shared a week later what happened and shared it with me 2 weeks later. An attempted rape in their own home. The techniques that I asked them after the person was very reticent about talking to their parents or talking to me. I eventually went to which techniques they used, and this student had studied for 5 months with us and combined two techniques. An EQ technique, it's number 78 in our cross-reference chart. It's Ubi Shimi Waza, which is an arm pain technique. They rely on their back, and one of these, the arm goes up and the other one goes down. Bring your throw them off balance. Went to another technique in the cross-reference chart, number 47, a Roku technique, a green belt technique, Nodo Tataki, which is simply a throat strike. So combined a brown belt technique with a green belt technique, and was successful in ending it extremely rapidly and getting away. Totally shaken by the experience, so I was kind of blown away by the way it was shared and how reticent this person was to talk about it. They just basically didn't want to, but felt obligated to share that information. There's another one. This is from an attempted rear forearm choke, and it was simply that's a Sankyu technique, number 100 on our cross-reference chart. It's also a video 4, number 11. It's a variation on an uranagi, or a rear circle throw, that was very effective in leaving that person on the ground and the student getting away. Only other one was an attempted mugging on a university campus. Number 69, a yellow belt technique, a Shichikyu technique, Teitataki, just a heel palm. But he walked up and said, "Let me hold your paper." He had a partner with him. And my student realized that the next question was going to be, "Let me hold your wallet." And he was in a heavily shredded sidewalk with shrubs on either side between dormitories, and tossed the paper at him. And the paper was enough of a distraction to land the heel palm. And one guy reeled and the other guy took off running, and the student went to the, those are the only 3 times. My own situations, I won't talk about unless we want to go there. My own situations all happened before I got training. Since I've gotten training, since I even began training, I have had 0 situations where I felt the need to use it. Large part because the more I learn, the more I realize how ridiculous physical confrontations are, and how easy they are to be avoided if you can convey respect and genuine concern for potential opponent.
Okay. Anybody else have any, or situation of either personal or experience from their students?
I can share my only personal experience I have, really, of being attacked on the street. Where it was night, and it was up in Ohio, and it was in March. So it was cold and it was dark, and I had on about 3 or 4 lightweight jackets because I had gone to a local high school to go jogging around the track, actually. And so I was done doing the jogging, and I was walking around, I guess I was going to go to my car and leave. And a guy walked straight up towards me. And as he got right up close to me, I didn't see his knife, but I knew that he had one. He had his hand down, and it was palmed in his hand. And as he got near me, I knew. So anyway, he walked straight up to me and just started trying to stab me with his knife. The guy was crazy. And side note, I don't think he was very good with his knife, probably. And I can't describe his knife. It must not have been too good, I guess. But he walked right up to me and started trying to stab me and do a takedown on me. And every time he tried to do a takedown on me, I'd try to move my leg so he couldn't. And meanwhile, though, I was hitting him everywhere, it seemed like, and in his head, on his head, and it seemed like it didn't faze him. He didn't notice it at all. It didn't faze him. Such that in the middle of the whole thing, I had this sudden realization of, this is the way I'm going to die. I thought I was going to be killed. I was sure he was going to kill me. And so at that point, the only thing that actually worked was I managed to hammer fist him right in his nose, right square in his nose. And when I did that, it stopped. He called me a bitch. He said, "You bitch," a bunch of times, and took off. And when he took off, I was actually stunned. I couldn't believe he was taking off, And so then at that point, like I said, it was at a high school. It was at a track. It was a high school track. And so I looked over and I saw that there were lights on, and I could see some lights. I ran up there and started banging on the door, and there were custodians in there. And at first they thought I was a weirdo, but finally they come to the door, and I said, what just happened? And they called the detectives and all that. And so when the police came, that's when I realized I had been stabbed, because when the guy stabbed me, I wasn't aware of it at all. But I had been stabbed inside my ear, and on my arm right there, and actually on my left breast, I actually had a nick, and then my jacket had been completely shredded. They'd just been shredded down. I didn't even know when he was doing it that he had managed to do that. But that's the only experience I had. I'll tell you, it traumatized me for a long time. I mean, for a long time, I couldn't sleep in my apartment without having all the lights on. I mean, for a long time, I couldn't sit in my apartment without staring at my doorknob to make sure it wasn't turning. For a long time, I couldn't even walk outside down the sidewalk past groups of people without having instant flashes of somebody with a knife. But that's my only real experience that I can say. But the only thing that really, the guy was on drugs, I guess. But the only thing that really worked was when I smashed him in the nose. He didn't feel anything anywhere else. That's my only experience. Thank you.
I mean, you had the opportunity, you did do that. Hold on just a second. You guys, the dog wants to go outside. Just a second.
Irene, while he's gone, I'll share something with you that amazes me. when you have the adrenaline rush of defending yourself, it's not unusual to not have it's like your pain receptors go down. It's not unusual to not be aware of injuries. I mean, I've had it just in sparring, where I come away from sparring and have no idea how contusions happen, because I don't remember them happening. All it is adrenaline. That's just I can tell.
Yeah, you're probably
Exactly. Go ahead.
you're probably right there, Dave. Most people really aren't in any situation. If it's a very stressful situation, they aren't aware of all the small things that are happening until they can calm down, step back, and then they say, "Oh my God." Okay, does anyone else have any, or students who have been in situations?
I'll share a situation I was in that I was able to use a jujitsu technique to remove myself from. I really shouldn't have been in this situation in the first place. I was hanging out with people I shouldn't have been hanging out with back then, and we were arguing about money, and we were in this tight hallway on the hardwood floor, and it was winter time, so we were all wearing coats, and he came at me. And I grabbed his coat and I pulled it and I lifted it up, and it came up over his head. So I pulled it back down over the front of his head, and I Tomanagi'd him down the hallway behind me, and I landed on top of him. And I came up, and I remember I came up with my fist ready to just start pounding, and I looked at him and just kind of walked away. And I think that we both knew at that point there was no point in continuing that conflict, that it was over, that I was able to then walk away from that after that nice tomanagi, and no further violence was necessary. Or
Right there. I've never had, well, other than being on a school security team, and I went to as far as students are concerned, I had one student who, and he admitted this, he put himself into a stupid situation. He was walking through a dark park at night, and one of his good friends decided to come up behind him and do a forearm choke. He did a basic iposionagi throw on his friend. Unfortunately, his friend impacted his head and suffered permanent brain damage. Okay, he has to bear that. But I mean, most of the stuff we do is out of automatic reaction. We don't think of how do you say, in a street situation, you cannot take the time to think, what am I going to do next? You just do it. I had another student who had a knife pulled on her at a bus stop. She ended up doing a teinagi, basic, or koto gaish, basic hand throw. Broke the assailant's wrist. She then came to me the next day when I was teaching junior high. She was really upset that she was going to get in trouble because she injured this person. And that's a pretty common factor I've found, is that I found my students, if they injure someone, they're afraid they're going to get into trouble. And the fact that the technique actually worked is a great surprise to them as well. And it's, I usually tell them they need to tell, if they can't, tell others of what happened, because you need to get it out of you need to get whatever was the situation's out of you internally, so that it's no longer something you're afraid of. And talking about it, having other people listen and ask questions can sometimes really help you feel better about a lousy situation. Anyway, another event was one of our black belts stopped a purse snatcher downtown LA. the guy pulled a screwdriver on him. He ended up doing a elbow roll takedown. Actually, it was a wrist lock takedown with his left leg under the guy's shoulder or upper arm, and a wrist press, straight arm wrist press. And it was kind of humorous. He said, now this guy stands about 6'15". And he was concerned that the guy was the assailant was complaining that he was in a lot of pain, and that he's going to, my student was going to kill him, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the people around kept shouting, kill him, kill him. And he was concerned that his leg, which was under his, opponent, which is part of the submission, his leg was falling asleep and he was going to have to get up. And fortunately, the police arrived in time. But those are generally it.
Which technique did he use to take him down?
Did he what?
Which technique did he use to take the purse snatcher down?
He actually did a wrist lock takedown. I mean,
Wrist lock takedown.
all of these are really, what you'll find, regardless of what we teach, the techniques that end up being used on the street are really simple techniques that students learn early on. And that's what, you sometimes wonder, well, is this all I really need to teach? And I know when I worked with the LAPD after Rodney King, they had fortunately done a lot of research on confrontations between police and perpetrators or suspects, whatever you want to call them. And they found that they were able to get, in 80 to 90% of the time, there are certain common things that the perpetrators would do to get away from the police. And the attitude switched from the perpetrator attacking the police to the recognition that this person is just trying to get away from the police. Nobody in their right mind really wants to attack a police officer. There's just too many negative consequences. But so they had us come up with 5 or 6 really simple techniques that could be used to deal with all of these different situations. The result being that injuries to officers and perpetrators went down significantly. Number of complaints and lawsuits on the use of excessive force went down considerably. And all of the techniques we taught, we set up for the LAPD to teach, were really basic, simple techniques that a student picks up maybe for their first or second belt. And that seems to be quite common across the board. And the palm smash to the nose, beautiful. We teach it to our white belts. The throat attack, we teach it to our white belts because it's such a, you have to teach the simple stuff first. Anyway, what else? Trying to think if there are any other. Just a second, I have to let the dog back in. He has us well trained. Otherwise, he annoys the neighbors. He starts complaining to them. Just a moment.
While he's gone, I'll share that we teach the simple stuff first, but I was amazed at some of those brown belt techniques that I thought were quite simple. Rear circle throws strike me as easy to execute and rather simple to explore.
Okay. I have another question in here. And I've heard this from a couple people. They say that if you're in a street situation, the small, muscle movements and nerve techniques don't work. And I'm wondering whether anyone has had any experience with that, or?
Yeah, I think when you're under stress, you develop tunnel vision. That's it. In a stressful situation, you're going to get tunnel vision, and it's going to be hard to focus and successfully complete fine motor skills. So the basic stuff, the simple stuff, is what tends to work best.
Okay.
Unless you train under stressful situations.
Right. And then I think what you're saying is the key there. It's if you've trained with stressful situations, so that you kind of automatically know what to do. I train my students a lot with nerve techniques. I'm not into hitting nerves or stuff like that, because I found a lot of times that simply doesn't work. But pressure points can work very well if the students know how to use them, and and they're not reticent about applying pressure, because you can create pain real fast if you do it right.
Yeah, the problem is sometimes pain's not enough. You've got to actually
right. But sometimes that pain acts as I look at like a nerve technique, a strike, anything like that. I look at those as distractions. If they happen to work,
great.
such as a palm strike to the nose, fantastic. Okay, but it's still a distraction. I know I've done backhand strikes, and I've done it twice, unfortunately, in demonstrations to side base of my partner's ribs, and unfortunately I've cracked them. But I don't look at that as that's all I'm going to do. That's a distraction. And I think it goes back to our last meeting when Thomas was talking about kime and striking, and where your force is directed to, whether it's a certain point or through, and we had that discussion. Those all to me are distractions. And as I said already, if they work, great. If they just take your attacker's mind off of what you're really going to do for half a second or so, that's the intent.
I think more, it takes the attacker's mind off what they want to do.
Yes, it takes their mind off of you're messing with their mind. Right. And there are non-physical ways of messing with their mind too. I think who said it earlier? If you're straight up, if you deal with this person in a respectful manner, it's amazing. I've been in street situations, and if you treat them in a respectable manner, it's amazing how, on the one hand, it can calm things down, but it also conveys the impression that you know what you're doing, and that can create doubt in their minds. And in anything you do in life, one of the things I tell my students, if you want to win at anything, one thing you have to do is create doubt in your opponent's mind. And once you've created that doubt, you've won. And whether that be in business or on the street or even talking to a teacher who is ticked off at you. Anyway, okay. Well, getting sidetracked. Okay.
If you mind, if I can throw this in really quick, since you were talking about fine motor skills. Just going back to what one of the guys was saying, that training under a stressful situation and keep that going with the repetitive motion. That's one way to be able to practice your fine motor skills, if you keep practicing it under stressful situations. I've had to do that in Krav Maga, where there's a technique where if someone would do a front choke on me, I would grab the wrist with an upward palm strike. And what I've noticed is how I grab the pad of the thumb. It's already ready for a tenage. So basically, I would grab the wrist at the same location every single time. So I wanted to throw in my two cents on that.
Yeah, I think. Just a second, I've got some people. Bear with me for a second. I've got some people who are muted, and I'm trying to get them unmuted. Okay.
I can unmute myself, George, don't worry.
Oh, okay, good. Oh, there you are. Yeah, you look pretty close to with the tie on and the white shirt, you very remotely you look like Biden. Anyway, especially with the I don't know if I'm complimenting you or insulting you, but anyway. But anyway, I forgot what I was talking about here. I completely lost it.
We were talking about the fine motor skills.
Yeah. Your fine motor skills, where you're putting your hand and are become automatic with training, and I know when my ideal situation is to because I've used it so many times, and even on adults, when I was on the school security team at the junior high, we'd have adult and high school gang members come on campus to beat up our kids, which was not a cool thing to do, since all the kids on the campus belonged to another gang. And you can see where that would go. But my objective was to get behind the person and just take a middle finger, and almost like Spock from the Star Trek series, come in there behind in the left side of the neck and go in for a nerve, and just because they weren't expecting it, it would usually cause them to slouch down, and then I could use that. They're off balance. You just take them down to the ground and it's over. And so I think if you train with certain things and they become automatic, you have a greater, even if it's small muscle movement, you have a greater chance of success. And as Eric has said, you just automatically do it. And that's why it works. Okay. Second topic is how do we restart our dojos after COVID? And I hope most of you have had your COVID shots.
I just had my first one on Thursday, but I still need to get another one next month.
Yeah, and some people, I didn't have a reaction to either one. Some people have had reactions to both. But as someone said, the reaction is a lot better than getting the actual COVID.
Right.
But it's a one-day thing, and then life goes on, and it's a tremendous psychological relief. Who are we looking at now? Who's this?
Steve Singleton here. Howdy, Prof. Kirby. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. I just, what's your name again?
Steve Singleton.
Oh, Steve Singleton.
I'm with,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, your audio is
Side Y and
your audio and video aren't coordinated.
is it going in and out?
Pardon?
Let's
He
see.
said, is it going in and out?
the audio is there, just the video's going is way behind or very slow or whatever you want to call it. But anyway, that's okay. Okay, anybody have any suggestions on, how to get things back going after COVID or?
Honestly, just understanding how the virus works and how the vaccinations work. It's going to take a little bit longer before I would trust us being able to be more open and training with each other, mask or no mask, vaccine or no vaccine. It's really just a matter of having that herd immunity. Once we get up to that point, hopefully by summer, I would say, then I would consider like training in a dojo. But otherwise, me personally, I would just stick with my training partner, and just learn as much as I can that way. I'm still uneasy going back to a dojo so soon, especially when we're just now getting all of the vaccines out.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'll add to that. Our dojo has been open for some time. We're following the 6-foot distance, social distance rule, where we have tape on the mats to help people stay in their squares. We also have all of our classes are available on Zoom as well as in person, which can be difficult when you're training because the people at home don't have mats, so you can't do it. There's just a lot of things you can't do or you can't do as well. Grappling dummies, we've implemented a lot of grappling dummies and those with the straight legs. We've even added to some of our dummies, we have extra straps. We had them made with extra straps so that you can hold them like it's a sleeve or like it's a lapel, a few different places, which has been pretty helpful. But there's a lot of stuff that, and then we are able to let people work together that are either in the same family or they're in a pod outside the dojo, so they're comfortable working together inside the dojo. But we really have a very timid community whenever it comes to breaking these, or when it comes to these rules. And here in New Jersey, it's a very, there's a lot of COVID going around. So it helps that all of our instructors have been able to get immunized, but yeah, we're not back to full speed where we're able to work together completely yet, but most of us do have 1 or 2 people that we're able to work with, but not all of us. Some of us are still very distant from everyone else and keeping their space. And yeah, we keep the mask on the whole time and stuff like that.
Okay. We're
George, this is Jeff.
yeah.
I've taught 2 classes so far, one out in an open field with masks and distancing. That was basically naginata versus katana, and everyone was distant. But I've also just yesterday taught a class at a women's shelter that was one of the 2-hour self-defense clinics. And my wife and I have both been vaccinated. I had a pretty strong 4-degree temperature spike with a second Moderna shot, but we feel we're safe. And the people in the group were so desperate for some self-defense help because they're battered women that they didn't worry.
Okay. Yeah. How do you say, there are realities. Our Park Dojo is still closed. The earliest we're looking at reopening is, and a lot of it comes down to how the city will follow CDC criteria. And even with 3 feet, we really don't feel we can do much of anything. We've modified our participant release. There have been a couple of changes we've made in terms of, and this gets into the legality of things. If you use a participant release, we have a statement that we picked up either from another dojo or from our insurance carrier itself, And the insurance carrier is okay with it being part of our participant agreement, indicating that the individual is aware of the virus and they won't hold the dojo or anyone in the dojo responsible if they get the virus, because otherwise you could, some people are weird, they'll sue for the, you know.
George, I use your waiver in
Yeah.
my class very carefully with every single one of my students. I would love to get a copy of your new version.
Okay, and the other thing, and I'm pretty sure the city's okay with that. What we're not sure of, we don't feel it's necessary to talk to the city about it this time until they decide to resume physical contact classes. The city does not have any physical contact classes or any classes inside of a building right now. And that is where the person must, part of the agreement is that they have provided proof that they have received their shots before they are allowed to be in the class. And I don't know whether herd immunity will inevitably resolve that. Our dojo, the room we have is not that big. Right now, we'd only have room for 1 or 2 people to sit and watch. But in any case, my concern is protecting the participants. Hopefully the city will go with that. But yes, Jeff, I will, if you send me an email in case I forget, I will send you a newer version of our release.
Muchísimas gracias. Shukran.
Yeah, because you need to, it's sad that you need to CYA, so to speak. And if you as an instructor are allowing people to come together and someone walks in with coronavirus, theoretically, it's possible you get someone who's going to hold you responsible for it, which is a sad commentary. What were you saying, Jeff? No, Jeff, you don't have any audio.
Lawyers need money so that they can put shoes on their children too.
Right.
Sorry.
So do the rest of us.
I'll also add one thing that's added a lot to the comfort of our students is that we got some portable air filters, antimicrobial, whatever air filters, and that makes people feel a lot better.
Yeah.
Our classes were outside for a while when the weather permitted, but it's far too cold for that now.
Yeah, we just would not have because we have to set up masks and tear them down after each class in the building we're using. And air filters and a lot of this extra stuff just wouldn't, it's not part of, how you say, our reality. It's part of, unfortunately. I mean, there are a lot of things I'd like to have, but when you're working through a park program, you have to work within their limitations. Okay. Okay, then that's different ways to get out of a front headlock or guillotine. Guillotine? Who brought that? Was that who brought that one up? I think last session.
I didn't. I sent you an email regarding the front headlock or the guillotine choke. Basically, I know how to get out of it from a wrestling perspective or a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu perspective, but how do you get out of it from a Budoshin perspective? That was my main question.
Okay. Once that is set, I mean, how do you say it? And this, I'm going to make this comment, and I know I'm going to get a lot of my toes stepped on for this. Is I've looked at a lot of videos, and a lot of the counters and releases are based upon, and this is for other holds as well, them not being set completely. Okay. And once a hold such as a guillotine or front choke is set properly and correctly, it's going to be very difficult to get out of, because it takes very little effort on the part of the person who has a hold on you to make the consequences far more serious. And it's easy to break a person's neck from either a front choke or a guillotine. That's the downside. Ways out of it, I would probably if I could, I'd bite the person in the side. And that comes from Kitsugo, because they taught us how to bite properly. You use the same approach as a pit bull would. You grab as much meat as you can and just turn your head back. A human bite is a really bad bite, vicious bite. And usually if you're bit by another human, the doctor will give you a tetanus shot. So, you know, it's a bite can work as
Some rabid.
if you're rabid, that's even worse. But that's a distraction. Okay.
Right. I know that the number one thing really is if you're in any kind of front choke like that, the number one thing is you got to protect the neck. So get
Right.
that pressure off.
You want to bring your hands up, and it's like a rear form choke. You don't want to pull away. That's almost a worthless effort because of the way their muscles are set up. But if you can pull down against your chest, that gets it off of your neck, and it's harder for them to counter that. Okay. From there, and I wish I had a uke with me. This is so hard to imagine. From there, one of my first things, if I can't do the bite, my second thing is, again, going back to Kitsugo, is if you can grab the testicles and squeeze real hard. If you do that right, it puts the person into catatonic shock. They'll go rigid for up to 30
Can
seconds.
also include twisting too.
What?
A little bit of twisting.
Well, if you can twist, fine, but the main thing is get a good grab and squeeze the grapes. Anyway, for lack of a better phrase. Okay, those are two options as attraction. You can also try a shark bite, which comes. Anyone not know what a shark bite is? This is another beginning technique I teach. It comes from Kitsugo. Okay, these work very well. I've had some of my junior and senior high school girls use these on guys that are a little too friendly. And it's amazing the reaction they get. They're really surprised. The sensitive parts of your body, inside the torso, inside the arm, inside of your thighs. And all you do is you take your thumb and index finger and grab a little bit of skin and squeeze real fast. You can't do this to yourself. It doesn't work, okay? But if you're in a headlock and you can do this, bring your hand around the other side and do a shark bite, sometimes, again, you'll get a quick reaction from them because it hurts. It's only momentary, but it hurts because these are various areas that are very sensitive to touch. Again, you can do that and then pull the hand, get yourself some breathing space, okay? From the breathing space, I would probably want to, if I could, like I said, don't have another body with me. If I could hold this down and if I could turn my head into the person, and let's see, let me stand up here. I have the person here. I would want to turn my head inward and out so that you're trying to get out of the hold this way, okay? Because you're not going to get out of the hold this way, okay? Because this elbow, you really can't do, well, if you get this down and you, let me bear with me here. This is hard to do without a person. If I'm here, I bring this down. Okay, you could also hold with your right hand, and if you get your left hand to the inside of his or front of his elbow, just push that away. Okay, but to do that, you've got still have to turn your head into him. Okay, because you have to be able to get your nose through this triangle. Okay.
Okay, so to clarify,
Is Will here? Is Will here?
Yep.
Where's
Yeah,
Will?
here. We're right here.
Okay, can you get your Pu'uke,
Sure.
who's been contemplating the evils of the world? Okay, and I want one of you put the other in a front headlock. Okay, good. Okay, now, ideally, now see, that's still not set completely correctly, but we'll go with it. Okay, if not Will, but the other guy, if you could bring your elbow down so it was, you're not at a 40, there you go. There you go. Now stand up straight. Okay, now you're set properly, and he's going to be in a lot of trouble. Okay, Will, can you take your left hand, put it on the inside of his elbow. There you go. Okay, take your right hand and do a shark bite inside of his thigh. Like, nice reaction. Okay, now take your right hand, bring it up and grab onto his forearm. Okay, now can you turn your head in towards him? There you go, and you're out. Okay.
George, there's one other thing that I have taught my students. There's a certain risk to it, but that is to walk into the person who's holding you in the guillotine. The risk, of course, is that he could stumble and flinch and hold extra hard and break your neck. If you have already partially opened out like you have just demonstrated there and Will has demonstrated, then he is going to start to stumble, and when he starts to go backwards, his natural reflex is to open up his arms to regain his balance.
Okay, that's another option.
It's interesting that you closed, because we were actually practicing something a little earlier where we created more distance. Like what you were saying earlier, once the whole set, it's hard to get out of. But if you can stop it before it gets set, as I feel it coming home, if I can create some distance here, to let him get me in the right position, and as he comes around, I can maybe stop this hand here. Then basically I'm trying to drag my head across the belly to get out.
Right.
Sensei, may I jump in here for just a moment?
Sure.
Will, could I have you have your uke go ahead and set this guillotine on you, please? The right side. Okay. Will, would you go ahead and with both hands pull down to get the space, pull down on his forearm, and then leave your left hand there, take your right arm and swing it up and drive it up underneath really fast. No. Up underneath his right armpit, really fast, and spin right out. That's how we do it to come out. You need to power through and up underneath his right armpit like that. But you move your core, your whole body. It's got to be fast. It's got to be hard. Come right on out. Keep going, man. You come right out. There you go. You're out. You got control from there. But it's got to be one fell powerful swoop that comes right up underneath his armpit, and you spin right out. He kind of has to let go. You break that lock, and you change the dynamic completely. And from there, you can go into a number of techniques.
Can I see that again?
Yes,
I mean, you
please.
can even throw in a distraction about just before you throw in that swing.
You got to drive hard.
Like
Pull down real quick, and then drive that arm right up through and hard. Come up with your whole body. There you go, right on that. You're out. Bang. Done.
Okay.
It's almost like a football move for linemen.
It's comparable to a swim move but kind of a different kind of a swim move that basketball players use.
That's really cool. It's similar to what we do at our school where we drive our hip, where before it's set, you drive your hips through and get your hips back underneath your shoulders and put as you push their arm back behind them.
Okay, I can see that one. Okay.
There's some other reversals, but that reversal is the one we find to be most effective in our dojo. If you feel that guillotine being set, you do it early on. If it is set, our experience is they can't hold it. If you were a really strong person and you outweighed your opponent, 2-to-1, perhaps, but similar body size, you're out of that guillotine because their arm just goes like this, and then from there you've used one of the jiu-jitsu premises is to use your whole body or to use a large amount of your body against a smaller part of theirs. And what you're doing is you're driving up with your legs, your core, up against their arm and their shoulder. And it's by taking that right arm and pushing it forcefully up and coming right around that you're able to use a larger amount of your body mass and your muscle against a smaller amount of his muscle and his body mass. Even if he's got that and he's clinching with his fists, that's our experience.
Do you have a video of that you might share?
I have a video in my head, but we don't have it on video.
I could never see it because the Zoom didn't show me. So I'll email you later and ask you about it, follow up on it.
Certainly,
I might do something with my training partner. I understand exactly what you're doing, what you're trying to say. So I would probably record something with my training partner and send that to Sensei Kirby and see if that works.
Okay, let's I just brought up Will. I just brought Will and his partner up on full screen on my computer. So I assuming I'm recording. So Will, can you redo that release that Dave mentioned? And
if you take your cursor and put it in the box where Will is, and then punch the blue box, you'll get replace pin, and you can get a full screen of these guys.
Right. Do you want to do this again, Will?
So I'm here.
So drive your right, just take your right arm all the way back and then swing it up and through. Hard, whole body. Drive with your legs and come right on out. Bang, you're done. But you got to use your whole body. You got to use your legs, your core.
Okay.
That's sweet. I can't wait to try it.
You try to do it one more time, just for the fun of it.
I'm not sure if I could do it if he's got this thing, if he's resisting. That's my only concern. Here. Yeah, it's kind of a hard move.
The arm swing, Will, is very forceful, and the drive up with the legs is very forceful. And you also you also have the element of surprise.
It's hard to get this arm through. It's hard to get this arm that way. Yeah.
But bring your arm back, bring that right arm way back, and then make a fist and drive that fist through. Drive up with your legs, bring the fist through. Come on. There you go.
Why don't you just take that fist and jam it up his crotch?
You got that option too. You can do both.
Yeah, just don't break him.
I'm here taking the knee. I got to do something else to create that space.
To take his mind off of his lock. Now, one of the things, I want you guys to stay on here. One of the things I saw on one video as a counter was I want you to Will, what's your other person's name?
Mike,
Mike?
yes, sir.
Michael, I want you to put him in a front headlock again, or guillotine, whatever you want to call it. One of the counters I saw was for Will, what you would do would be to drive into him at this point and grab his legs at his knee joints and take him back down onto his back. Okay.
We got stuff.
I think most of you can see the problem at this point. And that is that if Mike doesn't let go,
Yeah,
the first thing that will hit the ground
correct.
is the top of Will's head, which will probably take care of Will's problem forever.
But what Sensei Kirby is trying to come up with is it's a double leg takedown. It's a wrestling move. You're not going straight back. You're going at an angle. So if you're, like say you have the headlock and you're on the right hand side, you're gonna try to drive your opponent this way to this left side. So that's gonna put you in a better angle. So if you land, now this is basically isn't a very awkward angle, and the headlock is already broken. The choke's no longer there. That's the main idea. The main issue is now you're both on the ground.
Yep.
Right. Okay. Yeah, you're both on the ground, which is the worst place to be. Okay. There is a just if let's go back to Will here. We're gonna. I want you to go, Mike. Put him in a headlock, the front headlock again, and then we got to move on. Okay, now if you want to practice this, because we have a form of this which is you come in to do that, make a throw out of this is to take your right leg. Mike is going to go back down on his back, and don't do this. And you're going to hook his left leg with your right foot, but for safety's sake, and this requires cooperation of both parties, for safety's sake, what you do is you move your right hand from the headlock to resting your right hand on the middle of his chest, palm up, okay? And then Will has to tuck his head because and Mike's gonna grab Will either by his pants or his belt, and he's gonna take him back over him. And if this allows this throw to be done relatively safely, as long as Will tucks his head. And then once they're both down, then Mike can reset the choke, turn over so that, reset the choke and turn over so that Will is face up and Mike is face down, and finish the choke. But again, you're both on the ground. That's the downside.
Right.
But anyway, anything else you want to do with this front headlock?
I tend to set the front headlock differently. Like a lot of us we're talking right now, we're talking about coming across the windpipe here with the head sticking out to the side. As I come around, I like to catch his jaw, turn his head, and put my torso to have opposing force down on his head as I'm lifting up with the arm. So that way I'm getting this compressive action here. And it's much better. And it comes along, I think, faster.
There's also an additional variation, which is a takeoff from what you're doing, which is you take your forearm across
The jawline.
between his ear and his corner of his mouth, okay? Because there are nerves along here, and if you that becomes very painful in its own right. If you want to make either the forearm choke, the front choke, or as you're going under his jawbone or across your, if you want to make this far more effective, and this little technique is illegal in judo, but as Seki told us, if the judges don't, and the referee don't see it, then you can get away with it. And on the other hand, in jiu-jitsu, there's nothing wrong with doing this. And that is, once you have, switch back to myself here. Once you get this part, you get this part of your forearm against either their cheekbone or their throat or whatever. And if you can, grab with the other hand, and then you just start rotating back and forth. And the quicker you can rotate, the more painful it gets. Because not only now are you pulling in, but you're creating a bone against soft tissue that's going to aggravate the pain. Okay? That's just a little secret in case you need to get a fast submission in a situation. And it really doesn't hurt, I'd say, it really doesn't injure the person anymore. It just hurts a lot more. And that's really what you're after. It's a pain factor. Anyway, is there anything else on this that we want to deal with? Other than I'd really love to be on a mat with this with all of you, but that's not a reality. But coming up next topic is, and this is a question I want to throw out for you because I'm going to probably start doing this and I really need your input. And that's probably going to be the last topic today, is in the past on my online training, what have you, students have always tested via video. They send in a video to me. I evaluate, send back an audio evaluation, and if they meet the criteria, they get the belt rank. Okay. And this has worked its way all the way up through black belt. And I've never really been happy with it for brown and black belt because I think, and yes, there are a lot of security protocols. And if a person messes up on any one of the protocols, the entire test is void. The simplest one is that if the camera shuts off for any reason during the test is void. And there are various, legitimate reasons for that. But, and that's happened once or twice over the years. I'm looking at, since I'm more comfortable with Zoom now, is using Zoom for testing, probably starting at brown belt and up. And it really, on the plus side, it really reduces the number of security protocols that I have to have in place for the test to be valid for brown belt and up. And I just, do any of you have any thoughts? I know I'm just getting into this, but do any of you have any thoughts on things I perhaps need to be aware of in doing a Zoom testing, or that would concern you? I'm asking for your input here.
But for one, I'm gonna be your guinea pig. But I would say just it's good to do it live, but at the same time have a backup. In other words, while let's say we're doing a live Zoom meeting, live testing, I'm gonna have my camera rolling as well, and it's gonna capture everything. In case anything happens with the live Zoom meeting, we have a backup to capture everything, and it just keeps going. So there's no interruption there. So that's one thought process I have.
A backup recording? Is that what you mean, like another camera running?
Right.
Okay, that's a good, I never thought of that, because I know the Zoom meeting, I can record the Zoom meeting, but if something goes south at my end, your end is still up and running.
Right, and on top of that, it also gives me something something to look at after the
Yes.
session is over, so I can review it myself while you have the recording, say with Zoom. I will not have access to that. You will.
Okay,
Until you send that to me.
right. And ultimately, I would send the Zoom to you.
And both sides record.
The advantage of the Zoom to me is that I can, when a person does a technique, I can comment right away on if there's a problem or something I'd like to see, or can you do it a different way? And to me, that's the advantage of the Zoom, because I can catch a problem right there and work with the person to see whether it's just if the technique was done slightly differently or a different angle, I could see it better and everything would be okay. But I can see the validity of the extra camera as a backup. Dave, what were you going to say?
I was going to ask, can both sides record during this Zoom so that both sides have a recording of the testing? Is that
If
give
the
my
host,
ignorance?
if the host allows that option, then yes, you can do that. But the overall problem is if there's a technological issue with the internet connection or whatever, it's gone.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So you're saying, and I'm somewhat blind here. So you're saying the person that even though I'm conducting the Zoom meeting, that person at their end could also record the Zoom?
Yeah, because like right now, if I hover down to record, I don't know if it'll let me or if it'll ask you. Yeah, a window pops up, says, please ask the host to give you permission to record.
Okay.
Somewhere in your settings, you'd have to authorize that.
Okay.
Can I
Well,
just
looks
say
like,
one thing, Master Kirby? Those ideas about recording on both sides of the Zoom, those are great ideas. And the other thing, though, about the person who's testing, or the participant, the competitor, however you want to call them, making a video recording and sending it in, allows that person to be able to do their performance or their testing, perhaps somewhere where they may not have a computer set up, like outside, because we just did something like that similar. It was kata competitions, a celebration of sorts, and so that's what the people did. They videotaped themselves doing their katas and then sent them in, and then the judges were able to view all the videos and make comments and things. But that's just what I wanted to say. By videotaping, it allows it to take place in a place where there may not be a computer set up or an internet connection.
Right. Yeah. What I'm looking for with this is to have one, I think a recording is exceptional regardless of how it's done. And I think it's essential. I know when back in the 70s, I'd schlepp my video camera and the camcorder box into the classroom, and I'd record my kids when they were testing, and they would come in during lunch. And one thing you're going to find with students, they are going to be far more critical of their own performance than you would be as their instructor. And they tore themselves to shreds, and noticed stuff that I wouldn't even notice, but which is, I guess, a good compliment to their own sense of self-worth, or what do you call it? I didn't like to use the word self-esteem, because that was, I kind of think that we went through that when I taught junior high, that you got to protect their self-esteem. And I personally, and educationally, thought there was a lot of steam. Anyway, but I think the idea of the additional video recording is an excellent idea, not as a safety factor, and just to have something for yourself. Any other thoughts? On this?
What comes to my mind is just, I mean, I guess if it's Zoom and it's live and your connection's good, it's fine. But like from a safety aspect, if you see somebody setting something up for a dangerous technique, your ability to stop them, as opposed to being in person and being able to stop it.
Yeah, there are. I understand what you're saying. I think with the Zoom, you should be able to see something happening, and it does have its limitations.
Sure.
But
That's a great.
video camera has its limitations as well.
Right.
And I want to try this to see if it gives a better testing environment, a more realistic testing environment.
Sure.
And I will be the first to admit that testing in person is superior to any other form of, same thing for teaching. Teaching in person, nothing can compare with it. And one-on-one instruction and evaluation, nothing can compare with it.
I agree with that.
But there are alternatives, and I think as the technology moves on, how do you say it? The situation gets better where I will even when students send me videos of the belt test, and they do it by a Dropbox, and it's part of the BJJY membership, so they don't pay anything.